Thank you so much for tuning in with us here at Seven City Church. Our prayer is that this message would help you know Christ, encourage you to experience community, and help you influence culture like never before. We hope you enjoy today's message.
Good morning. If I haven't met you, my name is Stephen. So glad you are with us today. We are in the middle of a series called Stress Out, where we asked a few weeks back, what are the top stressors you're dealing with in your life? And during this series, we're basically picking those off one at a time. And so we started a couple of weeks ago, talked about anxiety, how to deal with anxiety in our lives. Then last week, we dealt with the number one stressor. You told us it was your number one stressor, and that was work. And so if you are dealing with stress at work, go back, listen to that podcast. I think it'll provide some fresh perspective and encouragement. Today we're talking about a stressor that most of us feel like we don't have enough of. Not enough of the stress, but enough of the thing that because we don't have it, it creates stress. And that is time management. And here's the thing about time. We all feel like we need more, and yet it feels like the list that demands that time only gets longer and longer and longer. We can check things off, and it seems like there's 2 or 3 things to follow it. Well, today I want to begin by framing out the value of time. And I think maybe there's no way better to frame that out than this. Hear this for a moment. To know the value of 1 year, ask the student who failed the final exam. Anybody been there before? You're like, that was not fun. I had to go back and repeat that. To know the value of 1 month, ask the mother of a premature baby. To know the value of 1 week, ask the editor of a weekly magazine. To know the value of 1 day, ask the wage earner with 6 children. To know the value of 1 hour, ask the lovers who are waiting to meet. To know the value of 1 minute, ask the person who missed the plane. That would be me. To know the value of 1 second, ask the person who survived the accident. To know the value of 1 millisecond, ask the Olympic silver medalist. Time is one resource we can't make more of. We can make more money. We can grow our knowledge. But you can't make more time. What you have is what's been allotted, and how you use that time is what matters most. We've each been given 86,400 seconds every day, and the use of that time determines who we become and how we're remembered. And yet so often we feel like we don't have enough. We don't have enough time to get the work done. We don't have enough time to complete our school load. We don't have enough time to volunteer with that charity that we want to volunteer with, or to volunteer at church, or wherever we want to invest our time. We don't have enough time to do the things that matter to us most. We don't have enough time to enjoy a hobby or to take a day off. And yet here's the ironic part of that. In some ways, we like it that way. We enjoy having places to go. We enjoy having people to see. And as a result, we tend to wear busyness like a badge. You ever done that? I know I've done that before. Like somebody asks you, hey, how you doing? And you're like, oh, man, I am busy. As if they're not, and as if the rest of the world's not, right? We wear it almost like a badge of honor. And yet, if we're not careful, we become confused. We confuse activity with productivity. We confuse busyness with significance. We confuse the urgent with the important. And without even realizing it, our confusion over how we invest our time directly shapes the kind of person that we ultimately become. Think about it like this. Time is a currency. Time is a currency, and we make purchases each day with the currency of time. Consider that in your own life. We've all been given the same amount of time, but just like we would use money to purchase things, we also use time, the currency of time, to purchase things. For example, the right use of your time allows you to purchase an A in your biology class. The right use of your time allows you to purchase healthy home relationships. The right use of your time allows you to purchase outstanding results at work. But the opposite is also true. The wrong use of your time allows you to purchase a body that's out of shape. The wrong use of your time allows you to purchase strained family relationships. The wrong use of your time allows you to purchase an F in your English class. The wrong use of your time allows you to purchase a habit of laziness. Again, how you use your time always allows you to purchase something good or bad. Here's the problem. Most of us don't know what our time is worth. And so we purchase things that are not worth our time. Everybody take your phone, pull it out for a minute. Everybody open up your phone. If you're joining us online, take your phone, open it up. Everyone open up the calculator app on your phone, okay? And here's what I want you to punch into your app on your phone. I want you to think 5 years from now, how much do you want to make each year? What do you want your annual income to be each year 5 years from now? Now don't just punch 9999999 and put the largest number that you can in there, okay? I get that. But be somewhat realistic, but dream as well. Like when you think, okay, here's where I am now, 5 years from now, here's where I'd like to be. Punch in like what you would like. You're not going to show this to me or anyone else, right? Just between you and yourself. Punch in like what you would like your annual income to be 5 years from now. Now, I want you to take that number, whatever it is, and I want you to divide that number by 2080. 2080. Why 2080? Because 2080 is the number of hours you work in a year if you work 40 hours a week. And some of you are like, this is a lot more than that. Okay, but just play along for right now. Take your number, divide it by 2080. What number do you come up with? If you punched in, I want to make $100,000 a year, then you came up with roughly $48 an hour. If you punch in $200,000 a year, you came up with roughly $96 an hour. If you said, I want to make $500,000 a year, you came up with roughly $240 an hour. Here's the question you have to ask. Whatever that number is, look at that number on your screen, and then ask this question. Is how I currently use each hour of my day worth that much money? Is how I currently use each hour of my day worth that much money? Now you may say, well, but Stephen, I don't make that much money per hour. So why even answer the question? Hear me. If you don't currently use your time in such a way that it's worth that much money, what makes you think you'll ever make that much money? You've got to get ahead of the game. You got to say, if something about my outcome, if something about my circumstance, if something about my life, if something's going to change, then how I use my time has to change as well. This isn't about making more money at work, okay? I hope you do make more money. God bless you. But that's not the driving deal. It's simply the application of your time in a work context, but you can broaden it beyond that, okay? Let's broaden it. Think about it for a moment. Is scrolling through, let's say your number on your screen was $50 an hour. Is scrolling through Facebook or Instagram worth $50 an hour to you? Is watching TV for 3 or 4 hours every night worth $50 an hour to you? Is spending an excessive amount of time on that hobby worth $50 an hour to you? The next time you're about to use your time to do something, ask yourself, is it worth whatever amount of time you've attached $1 to? When you do that, you quickly discover what is priceless and what is a waste of time. Hear this. If you want to change anything about your life, you first have to change something about how you use your time. Now, you may look at those numbers and you may say, yep, it's worth it. It is totally worth it for me to spend my day doing that activity or vegging out or whatever. I don't care if you put $1 million an hour in there. It is worth it to me. And that's perfectly fine. Like there's nothing wrong with social media. There's nothing wrong with TV. There's nothing wrong with all these things. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But hear me. You just have to be honest with yourself. Am I happy with the outcome of my life? And if you are, keep doing what you're doing. But if there's something about the outcome of your life you're not happy with, to think that it will change without you changing something about how you use your time is deceptive. It's deceiving yourself into thinking that doing the same thing will produce a different outcome. We all know that's not the way it works. Time is a resource, and how we use that resource matters, not just to us, but it also matters, believe it or not, to God. So this morning, I want to take a moment. I want to share with you two truths about time that we find in Scripture, and then I'm going to wrap up the message by firing off some time management tips to help you manage your time more effectively. The first truth I want us to understand is this: time is a resource to steward spiritually. It is a resource to steward spiritually. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 11, the Apostle Paul is writing, he says, "Don't waste your time on useless work, mere busy work, the barren pursuits of darkness." What is Paul talking about? If you read the context of the entire passage, you discover that Paul points to some certain behaviors that are part of our sin nature. He talks about sexual immorality. He talks about obscene talk. He talks about greed. He talks about these behaviors of our sinful nature. And basically what he's saying is don't waste your time doing those things. Don't waste your time on the barren pursuits of darkness. You see, we oftentimes don't think about it like that. Like if we're struggling with something in our flesh and our sinful nature, we're like, yeah, I shouldn't do that. Have you ever attached time to that thing? Like everything we do that feeds our flesh, that feeds our sinful nature, you realize it does take time. So have you ever stopped to consider, I'm using my time to feed my sinful nature. I'm using my time, I'm leveraging my time. My time is being used in a way that drives me into barren pursuits of darkness. Normally we just say, I struggle with this, I struggle with that. We don't ever make the connection to, but it takes time to do all those things as well. It's just a different way to look at it. I love what Proverbs 1 verse 7 says. Start with God. The first step in learning is bowing down to God. Only fools thumb their noses at such wisdom and learning. Can I just tell you right now that if you're going to use your time wisely and yet you're not going to start with God, every attempt to use your time wisely is shaded by your own self-interests. Start. Don't end with God. Don't loop back around to God after you've tried everything on your own. Don't say, well, I've got 3 other things I want to try first. If those fail, then I'll come. No, start with God. Here's why this is so huge. If you would start with God, how many of you know He would help you make the rest of the minutes count? Instead, we try to make the minutes count, and then we revert to God whenever they didn't work. Start with God. And when we do, it helps us to avoid the barren pursuits of darkness. Now, we've got a couple of resources, just real quick, I'll mention that'll help you with this. One is every quarter we publish what we call a SOAP guide. It's a Bible reading guide. If you'd like that, there's a brand new one that's out beginning with the month of October. You can stop by the Next Steps counter. If you're watching online, you can go to 7city.info. This is just a resource designed to help you spend daily time with the Lord. In your seats, you've got a flyer about the 7-City Prayer Zoom. I encourage you to take it. There's a QR code. Just click on that. On Wednesday mornings, we're having a prayer time at 7 o'clock in the morning. The last couple of weeks, we've had 15 or 20 people joining us on Zoom just to pray together. What are we doing? We're saying we're going to start with God. We're putting God first. We're recognizing that Christ is the most important relationship of my life. Let me just pause and ask you, is Christ the most important relationship in your life? And does your time confirm that? Number 2, time is not only a resource to steward spiritually, time is a resource to steward wisely. Now, in both of those points, I talk about time being a resource because think about it, just like money is a resource, time is a resource. And here's the thing about resources, they are entrusted to us by God, meaning my money is not my money. It is God's money. He has entrusted it to me with the responsibility to manage it wisely. Time is the same way. Time is entrusted to me by God. It is entrusted to me. I don't know how much time I'm granted on earth, but whatever that time is, it has been entrusted to me by God with the responsibility to manage that time wisely, to steward that time wisely. Because one day I will give an account how I stewarded what was entrusted to me. That's the entire lesson of the parable of the talents. When the master entrusted his servants with talents of money, they were then held accountable, responsible for how they managed what didn't belong to them, but what was simply entrusted to them. The same is true with time. We have been entrusted with time. How we manage it, how we steward it matters. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 5 says, "Good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts," anybody ever done that before? Hasty shortcuts lead to poverty. Inherent in this verse is the wise stewardship of time. Good planning doesn't happen in a flash. It takes time to carefully craft a good plan. Psalm 90 verse 12 says, "Teach us to realize the brevity of life." Wow, think about that. The psalmist is writing, he's speaking to God. God, teach me to recognize, to realize just how brief life is so that we may grow in wisdom. And then in Hebrews chapter 9, verse 27, it says, "Everyone must die once, and after that be judged by God." Oh, that's an exciting verse, right? Anybody memorize that one this week, right? Okay, whoa, time out. Hear me. We're judged for what we did with what we were entrusted with. I mean, Scripture, you see it all throughout Scripture. Yes, there is a judgment for those who do not surrender their lives to Christ. There is a judgment. But if you're a follower of Jesus, that's not the judgment you stand before God with. You stand before a different judgment. It's called the judgment seat of Christ. At the judgment seat of Christ, that's when we are judged for what we did with what God entrusted to us. You mean that's really going to happen? Yep, it really is. It's not meant to be a shame on you. It's meant to be, well done, good and faithful servant. That's what it's meant to be. It's meant to be an affirmation that you have taken what God has entrusted to you and used it for His glory and for the good of others. That's what it's meant. One of those resources is time. How am I using time that God has entrusted to me for the good of others and the glory of God? Time is a resource that we steward spiritually and we steward wisely. Now, when we don't pay attention to how we steward our time, hear me, it naturally gravitates toward the wrong things. Think about it. Has your time ever, without you just like really getting involved with it, has your time ever naturally gravitated to the right things? right? Did your time, without any discipline on your end, did it ever naturally gravitate to you working out? Never, right? That doesn't happen. It gravitates to the pizza bar, right? It gravitates to the chocolate sundae. It gravitates to everything that is the opposite of maybe what we should do. That's just the natural way things transpire in our life. It gravitates toward the wrong thing. John Maxwell makes a powerful observation on this. He says that unmanaged time flows to our weaknesses. It always does. Unmanaged time flows to the trivial. Unmanaged time surrenders to every emergency that comes along. Unmanaged time comes under the control of other people and circumstances. That's the nature of unmanaged time. It gravitates to the thing that makes the least difference in our lives. It takes intentionality to say, no, I'm going to steward time because it's a God-given resource entrusted to me. I'm going to steward that time in a way to have the greatest impact in my life, in the people that I serve, in my family. I'm going to steward that time with wisdom. So today we're gonna conclude the message, and I'm gonna do something a little bit different because normally, I'm not like a tips type person in a message like this, but I just want to be incredibly practical as we wrap up. How to actually do this? What does it look like to steward time wisely? So I'm gonna just fire off real quick 10 tips for effective time management. Ready? Number 1. Start your day with God. Well, of course you'd say that. You're a preacher, Stephen. Listen, I know that doesn't sound like a time management tip, but can I tell you something? God already knows about your day that has not yet unfolded. What would happen if you started your day by giving him the first part of it? What might he show you about all the other hours that are going to follow? What priority might he bring to light? What wisdom might he give you about work that just shaved 2 hours off your day because he gave you supernatural wisdom you could not get on your own? Here's a thought. What happens if you just got to know him better? And it wasn't about time management. If Jesus is the most important relationship in your life, does your schedule prove it? Starting your day with God, it brings you into this place where you say, Lord, I don't know what my day is going to bring. Yes, I've got plans. Yes, but God, what I do know is the last thing I want to do is to go into this day without first hearing from you, without first spending time in your presence, without first letting your word shape my heart. You see, the moment we throw this first one out the door is the minute we say, God, I've got this, you can help somebody else. I don't know about you, I'm not that good. And my plans may sound good, my plans may sound strategic, I may have an idea of but I'm just telling you right now, there have been moments in the presence of Jesus where he gives clarity to know, don't do that, do this instead. But beyond all of that, the sweetest part has simply been, I get to know you personally. Let your time drive you. Hear me. Let your time, your need for more time drive you to give time to that relationship. Instead of saying, I don't have time for this relationship because I've got this and this and this and this and this and this and this. No, let the fact that you you've got so much to do. Let that drive you to your knees where you recognize, if I don't start here, there's no way I'll get done what matters most. Start with God. Number 2, choose the right time management tool. Now, let me help you out. Your brain is not your time management tool. Anybody ever said, I'll just remember it? Right? The more you do, the more responsibility you take on your plate. How many know, no matter how good of a rememberer you've got, you just reach a place where it's just not good enough. Because the demands on your time become so great that you find yourself slipping. And you can be good. And here's the thing, early we oftentimes tell ourselves, wow, man, I've got to, I'll just remember it. Here's the problem. What good is it remembering things you shouldn't be doing in the first place? It's not just a matter of remembering. It's saying, you see, here's the thing. There's a difference between a memory list and a to-do list. Writing down everything you have to do is a memory list, but it doesn't mean you have to necessarily do all of those things. Some of them you look at and you go, that's really not the best use of my time. That's really not where I should be. Or you know what, that could go way, way down the list. Let me focus on what's going to help me. Let me focus on the things that are most important. And you've got to have some kind of a tool to help you capture those things. I love what David Allen said. Author David Allen says, your mind is for having ideas, not holding them. If you spend all your mental energy holding the things you have to remember, you won't spend that energy reserve developing the ideas that'll make the greatest difference. Number 3, clarify your highest priorities. Now, here's the deal. This one right here is, to me, it's probably the most important thing whenever it comes to time management. Clarify your highest priorities, because listen. The goal of time management isn't to efficiently get the wrong things done. Right? If you get something done in 30 minutes that used to take you 45 minutes, but it's still the wrong thing to do, what does it matter that you got it done in 30 minutes? You're still doing the wrong thing. Time management is not about efficiently doing the wrong things. It's about identifying the right things to do, the highest priorities, and then allocating as much of your time to those high priority items as you possibly can. Who cares if you can efficiently do the wrong things? What needs to be done? What is most important? The key isn't prioritizing your schedule. It is scheduling your priorities. And you got to know what those are before you can schedule them. So how do you clarify your highest priorities? 2 things. First is practice the 80-20 rule. Now, a lot of you are familiar with this, but what is the 80-20 rule? The 80-20 rule says this. The 80-20 rule says that if you have a list of 10 items that you do, 2 of those items will deliver 80% of your results. If you have a business, you know this to be true. If you have a business, you know that 20% of your customers deliver 80% of your sales. The same principle is true with your priorities, with your time. 20% of your priorities are likely going to produce 80% of the results that you need the most. The key is to figure out what are those 20% of the priorities, and then how can I start allocating more of my time to that 20%, because that's where the return is. That's what's going to make the greatest difference. Practice the 80-20 rule. The second thing is to identify the 3 R's. What are the 3 R's? First, what is required of me? This is your job description, right? Everybody's got one? Well, you got to know, that's where you got to start. What's required of me? Secondly, what activities give me the greatest return? Because even with what's required of you, how many know there's certain things that are required of you that the return on that investment of time is far higher than the things that are just like, oh, I got to do it, but what gives you the greatest return? And then third, what activities give me the greatest reward? This is the things that really touch the passion inside of you. How many of you know the things that you are passionate about the most, you work hardest for? The things that you have the greatest intrinsic motivation for, the greatest passion for, it's like nobody has to convince you to work harder. In fact, time passes without you even hardly realizing it, because you're doing what you're so good at, you're doing what you love. So to identify your highest priorities, ask the 3 R's, and then also look at, like, where am I getting the return whenever it comes to the 80-20 rule. Number 4, conduct a weekly meeting with yourself to plan your week. What do you mean a meeting with myself? I mean a meeting with you and no one else. Okay? And the best time to do that is usually before your week really gets started. So for some of you, if like work starts tomorrow afternoon, then maybe you just need to set aside some time on Sunday afternoons or Sunday evenings where you say, you know what, I'm going to start by having a meeting with myself to look at how I spent my time last week and how I need to spend my time this week. And to make sure it represents a connection to my highest priorities. Number 5. This is another one that I think is super helpful and super practical. Identify your weekly big 3 and your daily big 3. Identify your weekly big 3 and your daily big 3. What's your weekly and daily big 3? With your weekly big 3, you're asking yourself this question. What are the 3 most important things I need to get done this week that are connected to my highest priorities or goals? Like if you've got annual goals that you set personally or for your company or wherever you work, like if you've got annual goals that you set, it's taking those annual goals that are, maybe they're 12-month goals, maybe they're 6-month goals, maybe they're quarterly goals, whatever they are, is taking those goals and saying, what do I got to get done this week to help me get to that? Then, you don't just do that with weekly big 3, you do it with the daily big 3, where you say each day at the start of the day, now, what do I got to get done today? What are the 3 most important things I got to get done today to help me reach my weekly big 3, to help me reach my annual goals? If you don't make that connection between the 3, you can set goals all day long and they will never happen. You set the goal or you establish the priority, and then you say, here's what's got to happen this week, and then you say, and here's what's got to happen today. Set those weekly big 3, set those daily big 3. Number 6, understand the tension of urgent versus important. Urgent versus important. This is I've shared this with you before. This is a principle that Stephen Covey popularized years ago in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But it actually predates Covey. It goes back to President Dwight Eisenhower, and oftentimes it was called the Eisenhower Matrix. But here's how it works. They're going to put it on the screen, and this kind of, everything you do is going to fit somewhere in this matrix. Down the left side of the matrix is things that are either not important to very important, right? That's the range. And across the top are things that are urgent versus not urgent. That's the range. Everything in your life is fitting somewhere in this quadrant. So, for example, things that are both important and they are urgent, what should our response be to those things? You just got to do them, right? These are usually things that are crises, pressing problems, deadlines, or deadline-driven projects, emergencies. I mean, they scream for your attention. You've got to do those things. Things that are not important, but they are urgent, you need to delegate those things. These may be interruptions, busy work, maybe some calls, some emails, some meetings. Like if you have the ability to delegate any of that stuff, it's important, it's got to be done, but it's not urgent. I realize I'm not going in order here, but you'll see why. Things that are not important and not urgent, you just need to eliminate those. Like they're just a waste of your time. It's usually the trivial, it's wasteful, TV, mindless social media and internet, escape activities, you know what I'm saying? Like this is the thing, it's just this giant black hole for your time. You just need to say, I'm done with that, or I am significantly reducing the amount of time I'm investing in that, okay? The quadrant we don't pay attention to is the top right, and yet it may be the most important. And that is the things, they're not urgent, but they sure are important. Things like time with God, relationship building, personal growth, planning, exercise. How many know all of those things are important, but how many know you don't have to do them right now? And so what do? We just don't do them. So what do you deal with things that are very important, but they're just not urgent? You've got to schedule them, or they never happen. Again, it's not prioritizing your schedule, it's scheduling your priorities with the things that matter most. Everything in your life that is requiring time fits somewhere in that matrix. The question is it something you need to do, something you need to schedule, something you need to delegate, or something you need to eliminate? And can I tell you, and we all know this, it won't gravitate to the right box by itself. I have to intentionally say, you belong there, you belong there, you belong there, you belong there, and then do the thing that box requires. Here's what you've got to understand. Urgency is reactive, but the important is proactive. Everything that falls in the urgency matrix, the column of the matrix, it's always reactive. Respond, put out the fire. But the things that are most important, those are the things that you have to be proactive about. Number 7, establish a yes-no framework. Establish a yes-no framework. Do you realize Jesus actually said something about this in the Gospel of Matthew? Look what he says. This maybe you wouldn't think about this. Jesus said, just say a simple yes, I will, or no, I won't. Anything beyond this is from the evil one. Whoa. You see, if you say yes, but you don't, you allocated the time you didn't have available to do something that wasn't important, or to do something that was important but you didn't prioritize. Hear me. You're in one sense lying. I didn't mean to. I get it. All right, we've all been there. We've all lived in this zone. But we have to understand, it's not sin to say no to some people and to some things. And we have to develop in our thinking this framework, this yes-no framework, hear me, that allows you to say yes in the moment or no in the moment because you've determined ahead of time what to say yes to and what to say no to. When you don't determine ahead of time what you'll say yes to and what you'll say no to, guess what happens? In the moment, you cave under the pressure because you don't want to offend somebody. Hear this. Every yes is a no to someone or something else. Every yes is a no to someone or something else. The opposite is also true. Every no is a yes to someone or something else. So I've got to be honest to say, wait, time out. When I say yes to this, I'm also saying no to this. And if this yes is really big, I may be saying no to this, this, and this. So every yes is a no to someone or something else. So I have to establish ahead of time what are the parameters, what are the boundaries, what's the framework I'm going to use to help me say yes to the things I need to say yes to, no to the things I'm going to say. There are some things in my life that I've already determined I will say no to this, knowing that I might even cause this person to be mad at me. Is it because I'm too good to do that? No, it's because I'm responsible for how I steward my time. And that's just not the best use of it. Number 8, implement social media boundaries. I'll make this one fast because I know it's a painful one, okay? Implement social media boundaries. Why? Because the average person spends 142 minutes per day on social media. Trust me, I get the weekly report, from your phone. This week you spent, right? I mean, have you ever looked at that and went, praise God, right? No. You look at it and there's like really? I thought I was doing better. 142 minutes a day, that's 15% of your waking hours. 15% of our waking hours is surfing something that only makes me feel worse about my life. Anybody else? Just a thought. Some of you are like, no, it doesn't make me feel bad at all. It's because you're the person making the rest of us feel worse about. Number 9, find and feed your energy rhythms. Find and feed your energy rhythms. So what do you mean by that? There are certain, like our energy every day, like we've got peaks and we got valleys in our energy. And here's the thing, if you're not intentional about allocating your high energy moments to the things that matter most, you'll be trying to do the things that matter most at a low energy moments where you don't deliver your greatest output. So like for me, like every week I got to prepare a sermon. I don't do that in the afternoons. I don't do that in the evenings. I do that when my mind is the sharpest, in the mornings. That's a moment when it's like, okay, this is where I'm going to deliver my best, the best outcome, the best result. This is where I'm going to, we're going to see the most creativity. This is where we're going to have the greatest insights. Is if I focus on doing this in a moment when the energy rhythm is the highest. And then when it's lower, you do things that doesn't mean they're not important. It's just that they're not as important. It's just that they don't require maybe the mental focus that maybe something else does. Where do you have the highest energy rhythm? And sometimes for some of you, it's just simply a matter of saying, you know what, I do this in the afternoon. I'm going to now start doing it in the morning and do this in the afternoon. I'm going to rearrange things to allow me to leverage the thing that is going to give me the greatest output, the greatest outcome. Number 10. Number 10 is to automate. To automate. Author Rory Vaden says this: automation is to your time what compounding interest is to your money. So think about something that you do every day or every week, like it's a regular part of your schedule, and ask yourself this question: is there a way for me to automate this? It's kind of like with your bank account. You know how you can set up bill pay with your bank account where it automatically pays that bill every month so that you don't have to remember to go do it? What are you doing? You have automated a process, a system, so it saves you time, and yet it's assured that it always gets done. What else in your life is like that? That if you would on the front end take the time to automate it, even though it takes more time on the front end, on the back end it would save you hundreds and hundreds of hours. Because you just put the system in place to make it happen. It's like if you had something that you did every single day that took 5 minutes, that's 1,250 minutes throughout the course of a year. Well, if you invested, let's say, 30 times that amount on the front end, maybe it was going to take 150 minutes to automate it. Well, yeah, it's 150 minutes on the front end. Who wants to do that when it only takes 5 minutes? You want to do that because it'll save you 1,100 minutes on the back end. It's automated. You don't have to do it over and over and over and over. It's built into the systems of your life. So I remind us today, time is a precious, precious resource. And we're accountable for how we steward it. And it needs to be stewarded for our own spiritual health. It needs to be stewarded for the health of our relationships. It needs to be stewarded for the effectiveness of what we do at work. We need to steward it in a way that brings glory to God and health to our soul and health to our relationships. But it's up to me to make that decision. It's up to me to intentionally steward it wisely and spiritually. Let's pray.
Hey, thanks again for being a part of what God's doing here at Seven City Church. We hope you are blessed by today's message. If you'd like to partner with us or get more information, you can go to our website, sevencitychurch.com. Be blessed. Take care.